mine anyway, I'm pouring it on Steve Lisco. Yeah, I nicked it. It is sausage. What was that about? It's not mine anyway, I'm pouring it on Steve Lisco. Yeah, I nicked it. It is sausage.
We're here at the embankment, ready for the TUC demonstration against the cuts, and behind me are the FBU contingent just starting to gather. It's going to be a huge demonstration today. We've also got demonstrations up in Glasgow where there'll be also FBU contingents, and in Belfast. And I think this is a sign that people are increasingly angry about attacks on our public services, wage cuts, attacks on our pensions, unemployment, and all at a time while the people at the top seem to be doing very nicely. Bank bonuses are back, profits are up, and yet we're being told we've still got to pay the prices for the bankers' crisis of 2008. In London just this week we heard announcements that possibly 17 fire stations under threat of closure, 600 firefighter jobs. All these things are going to make the fire service worse to the people we serve. But the story's the same all over the country. In West Yorkshire, huge cuts currently just being announced. Same in many fire services across the country. And that means firefighters are going to get there slower when people die 999. But we're also here about wider issues, about mass unemployment, about the threat to our other public services, our health service, education, about the fact that living standards are falling, about the fact that pensions are being destroyed and people generally are being asked to work longer and longer. And all of this because of a crisis that we didn't cause, that was caused by the banks, by big business, and the chaos that followed in 2008.
I'm here to demonstrate because I'm extremely angry about a lot of things that are happening in the fire service. In particular today I'm here about my pension and my colleagues' pensions, and I'll be going on the lobby on the 7th of November because I want to discuss the cuts as well. So they want us to work longer, they want us to work harder, they want us to pay more, and they want to jeopardise our safety. So I've got a long list of grievances, Matt.
I mean, I've been in 20 years, so personally speaking, I'll have to pay, realistically, if the government get their way, another 10 years of contributions to get less back at the beginning of it, at the end of it, sorry. So, no, I mean, it's completely against everything I signed up for.
Protesting against the cuts in the fire service, particularly for us, but generally across all branches of public services. Something I hold dear is a public service should be for the public. Profit should never come into it. Private services is about profit driven, and the service we provide should never ever become profit orientated.
My name's Sally Harper, I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade, and I'm here today because of all the cuts that are going on in the public sector. The only time we need to cut back is when we get involved in the private sector. The private sector costs us so much money every time it gets involved. As a public sector, the London Fire Brigade have privatised all its training, which is costing us a fortune.
There's been a leaked document recently which proposed 17 stations were going to be closed, and another 5 pumps taken away, and up to 600 firefighters were going to be made redundant. Obviously that's unacceptable, and that's why I'm here today. Our attendance times are going to be slower, we're not going to have as many machines available, so if there is a big incident, we're not going to have the capability to deal with it. And obviously that's going to put the public at risk, just ripping the public services to pieces, and everywhere you look, hospitals are being cut, hospitals' jobs are being cut, all local services are being cut, which impacts on all the local communities. They haven't got places to go, haven't got things to do, and obviously it's just going to get worse and worse under this government.
I'm Andy Dennis from the West Midlands region. Yeah, they're proposing wholesale cuts in the region. Up to 600 firefighter jobs will be lost in the next 2 to 3 years. and that's the impact of the cuts locally, and that's why I'm here today, and also to march for a future for the whole of the country. Already in Birmingham City Council, seen wholesale change to conditions of service throughout the whole of the public sector in the region has been totally decimated at the moment. We've already seen the usual library closures, a lot of public facilities closing as well, and the creeping privatisation, particularly in Birmingham City Council. They seem to be very big on the private sector taking up the role of the public sector.
Yeah, and another major issue is with the PFI. We're wasting millions and millions of pounds to these things that don't actually work. Asset Co being a prime example. Asset Co at the moment own the fire engines, and they're in charge of all the maintenance that goes on with that. And obviously now they've sold it off to a company that no one knows anything about. And it seems to us that what they're going to do is strip it down and sell it off to even more private companies. And if all their mandate is profit, they're just going to cut until there's nothing left.
Keep pushing money into these private finance initiatives. You've only got to look at what's happened with London with their appliances. The way a private company was running the appliances, running a training school, and if they stop shoving money into these stupid schemes that aren't doing anybody any favours, they're just making rich people richer and get back to providing public services.
While you film it, it's a message for David Rowlands of...
Everything's under attack, isn't it? Everything that we hold dear, the NHS, they're queuing up, aren't they, to have these free schools, and the rich are getting richer. I mean, bringing it back to the fire service, and I'm sure it's the same in other public sectors, the people at the top of our organisations are actually coining it. There's no cuts there, is there? All these chief executives and commissioners and whatever else they want to call themselves, they call themselves whatever gives them a fatter pay packet, and they're quickly queuing up to make cuts everywhere, and we're the ones that'll have to pick up the pieces.
I use the public sector service a lot through the education of my children and through the health service, and every time the waiting lists are getting longer, the schools are getting overcrowded, the teachers are having to teach more children. It's just the standards are going down, and they're talking about cutting this now. What we need to do is invest in the public sector, invest in the services that serve the people. My wages, I haven't had a pay rise for ages, and what my wage has to cover are things like, for my mum, she used to have meals delivered every day. Now the service that she gets is only 3 days a week, so my wages have to subsidise that. I'm finding it harder and harder to make ends meet when all they keep doing is cutting the public sector services that every single one of us here today will use sometime in our lives.
I'm here to help protect our community. People's lives are potentially going to be lost because of the cuts they're making. Something like 16 or 18 fire stations being cut, 600 jobs being lost. There's no resilience. If we have 3 or 4 large incidents happening at the same time, which they can't plan for, like the big fire we had in Dagenham a couple of months ago, 40 pumpers, how are we going to cope with that?
And we've just seen death after death. We've had another family die last night. We had the family in Harlow. This is not the time, never has been the time, for them to cut the amount of firefighters and fire stations.
If the station's not there, the attendance time is going to be slower. Potentially the fire is going to develop more developed. It's going to be more dangerous to the people that are in the building, and it's also going to be more dangerous for the crews going in there to help rescue the people.
It's going to be a joke, to be honest with you. It's going to be a Mickey Mouse service. It's going to be longer response times. People are going to be put at risk, but also firefighters are going to be put at risk.
We're reducing pumps, we've reduced crewing levels already. We're riding with only 4 firemen as a rule on any one appliance. So no, the cuts are really taking a bite now. So cover in Surrey has dropped off, I would say, quite substantially.
It's not just the cuts, it's the cuts that have been made before today, before this year or what have you. In South Yorkshire we've been making cuts for a number of years. I'm at a 2-pump station, and they're now using one of our appliances to cover for people training. So we're left with this, what's called a car, and you've got 4 people on it. So the whole of Doncaster, where I'm based, is just covered by 4 people, which is a joke. And it's just this government, the way they want to slash. I don't see it just as a problem with money. I see more of an idealism on what they want to do with it. Everywhere's being cut, but they keep talking about the bigger picture and what's going to happen in December. And I've now stated that I might have another 7 stations closed.
Well, all 4 brigades have announced what are pretty dramatic cuts, obviously on top of the 1,500 jobs that are going to go in or have gone in the last year. That's probably going to add to the increase in, somewhere in the region of another 2,000 over the next year or so.
And what we're also seeing is, in work with the Northern TUC, is that areas other than the Fire and Rescue Service are seeing attacks. In local authorities, in education, in health, we're seeing thousands upon thousands of jobs going. And that's at the expense of the normal people on the streets, in the communities, the most vulnerable that we see, that are ultimately suffering, where they're having to take pay cuts, they're having to see reductions in the standards of living. The more vulnerable people in society are now suffering the most. It's about getting these multinational corporations to pay the proper taxes, for one. Yeah. Then it's about getting people into work, and that generates income for the country. We can look at social housing, we can look at the need for affordable housing within the communities, put people into employment, build housing for people, affordable housing that we're talking about, so that people can live in the communities where they work.
What would I do? I would actually try and invest for the future instead of cutting for the future. Cutting is not the way forward. Invest for the future. Let's build our way out of recession.
I think it's imperative that we stand up for ourselves and make ourselves heard now and try and put an end to all this.
But we're here saying that there needs to be an alternative that puts working people first, that defends living standards, defends jobs. I think hundreds of thousands of people are going to come out today to give that message to the government, but that needs to be just the start of it. We need to then get back to our communities, to our workplaces, get organised and give this government the fight of their lives.